"There's a strict dress code at the office party. You should stay home," my wife said, adjusting her sequined top that barely qualified as fabric. "You'd just embarrass me anyway." I looked up from my laptop where I'd been debugging a client's network security. Bianca stood in our bedroom doorway, transformed into someone I barely recognized. Gone was the conservative marketing executive who left for work that morning. This version wore a dress that cost more than most people's rent and heels that could double as weapons. "Since when do marketing firms have dress codes for parties?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. After 12 years of marriage, I'd learned that challenging Bianca directly only led to accusations of being controlling. She rolled her eyes with the practiced disdain of someone who'd perfected the gesture. "It's not just any party, Aaron. These are important clients. Damian Frost will be there. You know, the one bringing in the Morrison account? This could make my career." Damian Frost. I'd heard that name more in the past month than my own. According to Bianca, he was some marketing genius who'd swooped in to save their struggling firm. Every conversation lately seemed to circle back to what Damian thought, what Damian suggested, what Damian found amusing. "Right," I said, turning back to my screen. "Have fun networking." She paused at the door, and for a moment, I thought she might say something else. Maybe apologize for the casual cruelty, or invite me along despite the mysterious dress code. Instead, she grabbed her purse and left without another word. I listened to her heels click across our hardwood floors, heard the front door slam, then the roar of her BMW backing out of our driveway. Only then did I allow myself to feel the sting of being dismissed like hired help in my own home. Our house felt different when she was gone, less like a showroom, more like a place where people actually lived. Bianca had decorated it with the cold precision of someone staging a magazine shoot. Everything white, gray, or black, clean lines, expensive furniture, and absolutely no personality. Her marketing awards lined the mantelpiece like trophies from a war I didn't know we were fighting. I worked until nearly midnight, losing myself in code and security protocols. It was easier than thinking about how my wife had looked at me, not with anger or frustration, but with something worse. Indifference. My phone buzzed with a notification. Someone was trying to airdrop me a file. I almost declined it automatically. Random airdrops were usually spam or pranks, but something made me pause. The sender was listed as friend, not exactly threatening. I accepted the file. A video appeared on my screen, 30 seconds of shaky phone footage taken in what looked like a nightclub, pounding music, flashing lights, and in the center of it all, my wife. Bianca was dancing with a man I didn't recognize, tall, silver-haired, expensive suit. But it wasn't just dancing. She was pressed against him, her hands in his hair, whispering something in his ear that made him laugh. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m. Tonight. I watched it 3 times before the reality sank in. The strict dress code, the important clients, the career-making opportunity, all lies. My first instinct was to call her, demand an explanation. Then I remembered her location sharing was still active from when we'd set it up for safety reasons. I pulled up the app. Bianca's little blue dot pulsed from inside Velvet, the trendy downtown club where 20-somethings went to spend their trust funds. Not exactly the venue for a corporate networking event. I set the phone down and stared at it like it might bite me. 12 years of marriage, and I was getting my wife's real schedule from Find My Friends. The rational part of my brain, the part that made me good at cybersecurity, kicked in. One video didn't tell the whole story. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe the man was a client. Maybe the dancing was just enthusiastic networking. But even as I tried to rationalize it, I was already opening our shared calendar app. Bianca's schedule showed team event dress code required from 8 p.m. to midnight. I scrolled back through previous weeks, cross-referencing her calendar with our bank statements. The pattern emerged like malware under analysis. Every team event corresponded to charges at upscale bars and clubs. Every client dinner happened at restaurants known more for their scenes than their food. Every mandatory work function seemed to require a new outfit and a night out without me. I pulled up our credit card statements and started building a timeline. 3 months of lies laid out in neat rows of charges and dates. My wife had been living a double life, and I'd been paying for it. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Another airdrop from friend. This time it was an audio file. Bianca's voice, slightly slurred from alcohol, talking to someone in a bathroom that echoed with club acoustics. "He has no idea," she was saying, laughing. "Aaron thinks I'm at some boring work thing. God, he's so clueless. Just sits there with his computers all day like some kind of, I don't know, robot." Another woman's voice responded. Nina, Bianca's colleague and supposed best friend. "You're terrible, B. But Damian is so much more fun than my husband." Bianca's laugh was sharp. "A houseplant would be more fun than Aaron. At least plants don't lecture you about network security." The recording cut off. I sat in my home office, surrounded by the humming servers and blinking lights of my cybersecurity setup, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Not just anger, that would have been easier. This was something more calculating. I'd spent 15 years protecting people from digital threats, building firewalls to keep the bad guys out. But what do you do when the threat is already inside the perimeter? I opened a new file on my computer and titled it Project Firewall. If Bianca wanted to play games with security, she'd picked the wrong opponent. By sunrise, I had a plan. The Ironworks boxing gym smelled like sweat, leather, and honest work, everything my life had been missing lately. Morris Mo Klein owned the place, a former Army communications specialist who'd traded his uniform for boxing gloves and a small business loan. We'd served together in Iraq, back when our biggest worry was keeping insurgents out of military networks. "You look like hell," Mo said, not looking up from wrapping his hands. At 41, he was still in fighting shape, all muscle and scar tissue from a life spent solving problems with his fists. "Thanks for the pep talk." I settled onto the bench across from him. "I need advice." "About what? Your wife's been cheating for months, and you just figured it out?" Mo finished his rap and gave me a look that could cut glass. "Aaron, brother, I've been watching you sleepwalk through this marriage for years. The only surprise is that it took you this long to notice." I shouldn't have been shocked that he knew. Mo had always been good at reading people. It's what kept us alive overseas. "How long have you known?" "Saw her at Velvet about 6 weeks ago. She didn't see me, but she was all over some silver-haired pretty boy. Figured you knew and were handling it your way." He stood up and started toward the heavy bag. "What's the play?" "I'm not sure yet. Part of me wants to just file for divorce and be done with it." Mo stopped and turned around. "And the other part?" "The other part wants to burn her whole world down." He smiled for the first time since I'd walked in. "Now you're talking. You want to fight, or you want to win? What's the difference?" "Fighting is emotional, messy. You confront her, she cries, makes excuses, maybe promises to change. Then 6 months later, you're back where you started." He threw a combination at the bag that made it jump. "Winning is strategic. You use your skills, find the leverage, and make sure she can't hurt you or anyone else again." I thought about the audio file, Bianca's casual cruelty, the months of lies. I want to win. Good. Then stop thinking like a husband and start thinking like a hacker. What's her biggest vulnerability? That was easy. Her career. Everything she does is about status, image, climbing the corporate ladder. She'd rather die than be embarrassed professionally. So embarrass her professionally. Mo threw another combination. But smart, legal. The kind of thing that looks like natural consequences, not revenge. I spent the rest of the morning at the gym, working through my anger on the heavy bag, while Mo coached me through strategy. By the time I left, I had the beginning of a plan. My first stop was Samira Patel, a junior associate at Bianca's firm who'd always been friendly when we met at company events. She was young, ambitious, and, most importantly, had access to internal communications. I found her at the coffee shop near her office, exactly where I'd hoped. Samira was a creature of habit, always grabbing a latte at 2 p.m. to power through the afternoon slump. "Aaron!" She seemed genuinely happy to see me. "What brings you downtown?" "Client meeting," I lied smoothly. "Mind if I sit? I wanted to ask you something." She gestured to the empty chair across from her. "Sure, how's Bianca? She's been so busy lately with all these client events." "That's actually what I wanted to ask about. She's been working so much and I'm worried about her expense reports. You know how paranoid I get about financial stuff." I gave her my best concerned husband smile. "Has HR been okay with all the entertainment expenses? I'd hate for her to get in trouble." Samira's expression shifted slightly. "Oh, you know about the—" "Yeah, some people have been talking. Nina mentioned that the expense reports have been pretty aggressive lately, especially with the Damian Frost account." "Talking how?" She leaned in conspiratorially. "Well, I probably shouldn't say this, but there's been some gossip about whether all those club nights are really necessary for client relations. I mean, Velvet isn't exactly where you'd expect to close a marketing deal, you know?" I felt a spike of satisfaction. The rumors were already starting. "I'm sure it's fine. Bianca's always been careful about compliance." "Of course," Samira said quickly. "I didn't mean to imply. It's just office gossip. You know how it is." I did know how it was, and now I knew exactly how to make it worse. That evening, I waited until Bianca left for another mandatory team dinner before putting the next phase into motion. I'd spent the afternoon researching Damian Frost, building a complete profile of Bianca's new obsession. 42 years old, divorced twice, drove a leased Mercedes that cost more than most people made in a year. He had a reputation as a rainmaker, the kind of consultant who promised big results and charged even bigger fees. More importantly, he parked in the same spot in the underground garage every day. I'd learned a lot about physical security during my military service. Most people think cybersecurity is all about computers, but the weakest link is always human behavior. People leave their cars unlocked, their passwords on sticky notes, their lives wide open for anyone smart enough to look. Damian's Mercedes was locked, but luxury cars have luxury problems. The keyless entry system that made his life convenient also made it vulnerable. A simple RF amplifier, the kind you could buy online for testing purposes, could capture and replay the signal from his key fob. I waited in the shadows until he disappeared into the elevator, then approached his car. The amplifier worked perfectly, and the doors unlocked with a soft chirp. I didn't steal anything. Theft would be criminal, and I wasn't interested in going to jail for this. Instead, I opened his bottle of expensive hair gel and smeared it across the leather seats. Then I poured a bottle of fish sauce, the kind used in Vietnamese cooking, under the driver's seat, where it would slowly seep into the carpet. The smell would take days to develop and weeks to remove. By the time he figured out what happened, his precious Mercedes would be uninhabitable. I left a burner phone under the passenger seat, programmed to play Bianca's bathroom confession on repeat every hour. Let him hear exactly what his new girlfriend really thought about the men in her life. The security cameras caught me leaving, but I'd worn a maintenance uniform and baseball cap, just another service worker in a building full of them. When I got home, Bianca was already there, pacing around our living room like a caged animal. "Where were you?" she demanded. "Client dinner," I said, using her own lie against her. "Why?" "Someone vandalized my car, scratched nice dress code into the paint." I examined the scratches with exaggerated concern. "That's terrible. Did you call the police?" "They said it was probably just random vandalism, but Aaron—" She looked at me with something that might have been suspicion. You didn't seem upset last night when I told you about the dress code. Why would I be upset? You're advancing your career. I'm proud of you. She studied my face, looking for signs of deception. But I'd learned from the best, her. My expression remained perfectly neutral, supportively concerned. Never mind. She shook her head. I'm going to bed. As she walked away, I called after her. How was the team dinner, by the way? She froze for just a moment. Fine, boring. You wouldn't have enjoyed it. I'm sure you're right. I waited until I heard the bedroom door close before allowing myself to smile. Phase 1 was complete. The next morning brought the first real payoff. I was in my home office when Samira texted me. HR called emergency meeting. Expense audit starting today. Bianca looks panicked. I'd been expecting this. Anonymous tips had a way of finding their way to the right people, especially when they included detailed expense reports and timestamps that didn't quite add up. I hadn't fabricated anything, just organized the existing evidence in a way that raised obvious questions. Bianca's phone had been buzzing all morning. She'd taken 3 calls in hushed, urgent tones before finally storming into my office. Someone reported me to HR, she said without preamble. I looked up from my computer with practiced innocence. Reported you for what? Expense fraud. They're auditing every receipt from the past 6 months. She was pacing again, her professional composure cracking. Aaron, I swear to God, if I what? Reported my own wife for fraud? I kept my voice calm, reasonable. Bianca, that's paranoid. Why would I sabotage your career? Because you're jealous. You've always been jealous of my success, my social life, Your what? Your late nights at clubs while I think you're at work functions? I let just enough edge creep into my voice. Your new best friend Damian, who seems to require a lot of after-hours attention? Her face went white. I don't know what you're implying, but I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. I pulled up the credit card statements on my screen and turned the monitor toward her. 3 months of charges at Velvet Noir and every other trendy club in the city, all on nights you claimed to be at work events. She stared at the screen, and I watched her calculate how much trouble she was in. Those were legitimate business expenses. Client entertainment is part of my job. At nightclubs? Until 2 a.m.? I clicked through the charges methodically. Bottle service for $800, VIP room rental, a charge at Victoria's Secret the same day as the Morrison account presentation. Very professional. You're tracking my spending now? That's abusive, Aaron. Controlling. It was a predictable deflection. Make me the villain for discovering her lies rather than taking responsibility for telling them. But I'd anticipated this too. I'm not tracking anything. These are our shared accounts, remember? The ones you insisted on for financial transparency when we got married. I closed the laptop and stood up. But you're right about one thing. This is controlling. You've been controlling the narrative, controlling the information, controlling me. Well, congratulations. You've lost control. She opened her mouth to respond, but her phone rang. The caller ID showed her boss's name. I have to take this, she said, stepping into the hallway. I could hear her side of the conversation through the thin walls, a lot of yes, sir, and I understand, and I can explain everything. When she came back, her face was pale. I'm suspended pending the investigation, she said quietly. I'm sorry to hear that. No, you're not. Her voice was flat. You did this. I don't know how, but you did this. Bianca, I think you did this. I just stopped enabling it. That afternoon, while she was presumably meeting with lawyers or HR representatives, I decided to accelerate the timeline. Mo had taught me that in a fight, momentum was everything. Once you had your opponent off balance, you kept pressing until they went down. I drove to the underground garage where Damian parked his Mercedes. The fish sauce had done its work. I could smell the car from 20 feet away. More importantly, I could hear the burner phone playing Bianca's audio confession on repeat. Damian was standing next to his car, talking angrily on his phone, while a tow truck driver prepared to haul away the Mercedes. "I don't care what it costs," he was saying. "Get every inch of that car detailed. Replace the carpet, the seats, whatever it takes to get that smell out." I approached with my best concerned citizen expression. "Excuse me, is everything okay?" He looked at me with the harried expression of a man whose day had gone completely sideways. "Someone vandalized my car, poured some kind of... I don't even know what that smell is. That's terrible. Did you call the police?" "They said it's probably just random vandalism. Kids, maybe." He gestured helplessly at the Mercedes. "I have client meetings this afternoon, and now I smell like a fish market." "I'm sorry to hear that. I'm Aaron Cole, by the way. I work in cybersecurity." I extended my hand, and he shook it automatically. "Damian Frost. I'm in marketing consulting." "Frost. That name sounds familiar. Do you work with Bianca Cole? She's my wife." His expression changed immediately. Surprise, then something that might have been guilt. "Your wife?" "Yes, we work together on the Morrison account. She speaks very highly of you, says you're quite the rainmaker. She's very talented, very dedicated to her work." "Oh, I know. She's been working so many late nights lately I barely see her. All those client events and team dinners." I watched his face carefully. "I'm sure you understand how demanding the business can be." "Yes, very demanding." He was backing away now, clearly uncomfortable. The tow truck is waiting." "Of course. I hope you get your car situation sorted out." I paused as if something had just occurred to me. "You know, it's funny. Bianca mentioned she was at a team event last night, but her location sharing showed her at some club downtown. Technology, right? Sometimes these apps glitch." Damian went very still. "I'm sure it was just a mistake." "I'm sure you're right. Well, good luck with everything." I walked away, leaving him standing next to his ruined car with the sound of his own voice, or rather, Bianca's voice talking about him, echoing from the speakers. That evening, Bianca came home looking like she'd been through a war. Her professional armor was cracked, her usual confidence replaced by something that looked almost like fear. "How bad is it?" I asked, not looking up from my dinner. "They're conducting a full audit. Every expense, every receipt, every client interaction." She slumped into the chair across from me. "And someone's been spreading rumors. Nina won't even talk to me." "What kind of rumors?" "About me and..." She stopped herself. "About my client relationships being inappropriate." "Are they inappropriate?" She looked at me for a long moment, and I could see her weighing her options. Lie and hope I didn't already know the truth, or confess and try to manage the damage. "It's complicated," she said finally. "No, it's really not. Either you're faithful to our marriage or you're not. Either you're honest about your work expenses or you're not. Either you respect me enough to tell me the truth or you don't." I set down my fork and looked at her directly. "Which is it, Bianca?" She started to cry then, not the elegant tears of a woman seeking sympathy, but the ugly, desperate sobs of someone who'd run out of options. "I never meant for it to go this far," she said between gasps. "It started as just flirting, harmless. But Damian is so charming and you're always working and I felt invisible in my own marriage." "So you made yourself visible to someone else?" "It wasn't supposed to mean anything. Just some fun, some excitement. But then the expenses started piling up, and I had to justify them somehow, and the lies just kept getting bigger." I felt something cold and final settle in my chest. Not anger anymore, but a kind of professional detachment. She wasn't my wife confessing her mistakes. She was a security breach that needed to be contained. "How long?" I asked. 3 months, maybe 4. "And how many people know?" "Just Nina, and maybe a few people at work who've seen us together. Aaron, I swear I was going to end it. The investigation, the rumors, it's all falling apart anyway. I nodded slowly. You're right. It is falling apart. But not the way you think. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and showed her the video of her dancing with Damian. Her face went white. Where did you get that? Someone sent it to me. The same someone who sent me the audio of you and Nina talking in the bathroom at Velvet. The same someone who's been documenting your affair for months. She stared at the phone like it might explode. Who? Who would do that? I have some theories. But the more interesting question is what they plan to do with all this evidence. Aaron, please. I know I screwed up, but you can't let this destroy my career. I'll do anything. You've already destroyed your career, Bianca. I'm just making sure you can't take anyone else down with you. Her tears stopped abruptly. What does that mean? I stood up and walked toward my office. It means the firewall is working exactly as designed. The next morning brought chaos. Bianca's phone had been ringing since 6 a.m. HR, her lawyer, her sister, and a parade of colleagues who'd apparently heard about the suspension. Each call made her more frantic, more desperate. I was drinking coffee and watching the show when my own phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Meet me at Starbucks on 5th. 1 hour. Come alone. N. Nina. Bianca's supposed best friend and co-conspirator. This was going to be interesting. I found her in the back corner of the coffee shop, hunched over a laptop like she was trying to make herself invisible. Nina Wilkins had always struck me as the kind of person who lived for drama, as long as she wasn't the one caught in it. Aaron. She looked up as I approached, her eyes red-rimmed and nervous. Thanks for coming. What do you want, Nina? She glanced around the coffee shop before leaning closer. I know you're behind this. The HR investigation, the rumors, all of it. I don't know how, but I know it was you. That's a serious accusation. Do you have any proof? I don't need proof. I know you heard that recording of Bianca and me talking. Someone's been feeding information to HR, and it wasn't random. I sat back and studied her. Nina was scared, but she was also calculating. This wasn't a confession. It was a negotiation. Let's say you're right, I said carefully. What do you want? I want you to back off. Stop whatever you're doing before it gets worse. Worse for who? You? She flinched. This isn't just about Bianca anymore. The investigation is expanding. They're looking at everyone's expense reports, all the client entertainment budgets. People are going to lose their jobs. People who committed fraud should lose their jobs. It wasn't fraud. Her voice rose, then she caught herself and looked around nervously. It was just creative accounting. Everyone does it. Everyone commits expense fraud? Everyone pushes the boundaries a little. Client entertainment, team building, relationship development. The lines aren't always clear. I leaned forward. The lines seem pretty clear to me. Either you're conducting legitimate business or you're partying on the company dime. Which was it, Nina? She was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee like it might provide answers. When she looked up, her expression had hardened. You want to play hardball? Fine. I have information that could destroy Bianca completely. Not just her job, her reputation, her future, everything. What kind of information? The kind that shows this affair wasn't her first. The kind that proves she's been manipulating expense accounts for over a year. The kind that reveals exactly how she's been paying for her lifestyle. Nina's smile was sharp and vindictive. But I also have information about you. About me? About your little revenge campaign. The anonymous tips, the surveillance, the harassment. How do you think that would look in a divorce proceeding or a restraining order hearing? I felt a chill of genuine concern. Nina was smarter than I'd given her credit for, and more dangerous. What do you want? I asked again. I want you to call off the dogs, stop the investigation, stop the rumors, stop whatever else you have planned. In exchange, I'll make sure Bianca takes full responsibility for the expense issues and leaves you out of it completely. And if I don't? Then I burn it all down. Bianca, you, everyone. I've been documenting everything for months. Insurance, you might say. I know about the car vandalism, the anonymous tips, the way you've been manipulating information. I can prove you've been stalking your own wife. She was bluffing. She had to be. But the confidence in her voice suggested she had at least some evidence. I needed to know how much. Show me, I said. She turned her laptop around. On the screen was a detailed timeline of the past week, complete with photos, timestamps, and what looked like surveillance footage from the parking garage. I've been watching both of you, she said. Bianca because I knew she was going to self-destruct eventually, and you because I knew you'd figure it out and try to get revenge. I document everything, Aaron. It's how I survive in corporate politics. I studied the evidence. It was damaging but not conclusive. Circumstantial at best, but in the wrong hands, it could certainly make my life complicated. You're good, I admitted, but you're missing something important. What's that? I pulled out my own phone and opened a video file. This. The footage showed Nina and Bianca's boss, Richard Hawthorne, in what was clearly a hotel room. The timestamp was from 2 weeks ago, during a supposed client retreat in Chicago. Nina went very pale. Where did you get that? The same place I got all the other evidence. You're not the only one who documents everything, Nina, and you're not the only one with insurance. That's not what it looks like. It looks like you've been having an affair with a married man who happens to be your boss. The same boss who's been approving all those creative expense reports you mentioned. The same boss who's now conducting the investigation into Bianca's conduct. Nina stared at the phone screen, her face cycling through shock, anger, and fear. You bastard. I'm a bastard who's very good at his job. The question is, what are you going to do with this information? What do you want? I want you to tell HR everything. The real story about the expense fraud, about Bianca's affairs, about your own relationship with Hawthorne. I want you to take responsibility for your part in this mess and stop trying to drag me into it. And if I do that, then this video stays private, and you might be able to salvage some kind of career in marketing. Maybe not at your current firm, but somewhere. And if I don't, then I send this to Hawthorne's wife, the HR department, and every marketing blog in the city. Your affair becomes public knowledge, your boss loses his job, and you become unemployable in this industry. Nina closed her laptop with shaking hands. You've thought of everything, haven't you? I've thought of enough. She stood up abruptly. Fine, you win. But Aaron? This doesn't end here. Bianca may have made mistakes, but you're destroying people's lives. That makes you worse than any of us. Maybe, I said, but I'm the one who's going to walk away from this intact. She left without another word, and I sat alone in the coffee shop, feeling the weight of what I'd become. Nina was right about one thing. I was destroying lives. The question was whether I cared anymore. My phone buzzed with a text from Mo. Heard through the grapevine that Frost is asking questions about you. Might want to handle that before it becomes a problem. I paid for my coffee and headed back to my car. It was time to have a conversation with Damian. I found Damian at his temporary office, a co-working space downtown where he'd been conducting meetings since his Mercedes became uninhabitable. He was on the phone when I walked in, gesticulating angrily at someone who couldn't see him. I don't care what the insurance says, he was saying. That smell is not coming out. I need a replacement vehicle, and I need it today. He looked up when I approached, and his expression immediately shifted from annoyance to wariness. I'll call you back, he said into the phone, then hung up. Mr. Cole, this is unexpected. Is it? I figured we should talk, considering how much time you've been spending with my wife. He straightened in his chair, trying to project confidence. I'm not sure what you're implying, but my relationship with Bianca is strictly professional. Professional. I pulled out my phone and played the video of them dancing at Velvet. This is your idea of professional conduct? His face went through several interesting color changes. Where did you get that? The same place I got these. I showed him screenshots of text messages between him and Bianca, intimate photos they'd exchanged, and expense reports that documented their affair in excruciating financial detail. You've been spying on us. I've been protecting myself. See, Damian, when someone steals from you, the smart thing to do is document the theft. When someone lies to you, you document the lies. When someone betrays you, I leaned back in my chair. You make sure they can't do it again. I never stole anything from you. You stole my wife's loyalty, my trust, and about $15,000 in fraudulent expense reports that I'll be paying for when the company comes after her for reimbursement. I pulled up the financial analysis I'd prepared. Did you know that every one of your dates was charged to her corporate account? The hotels, the dinners, the club nights, even the lingerie she bought for your private meetings. Technically, that makes you an accessory to corporate fraud. Damian was sweating now. I had no idea she was using company money. I thought... You thought what? That a marketing associate making $60,000 a year could afford to drop $2,000 a week on entertainment? Or did you just not care where the money came from as long as someone else was paying? Look, whatever you want, what I want is very simple. I want you to disappear. Stop seeing Bianca. Stop taking her calls. Stop enabling her self-destruction. Walk away, and we can all pretend this never happened. And if I don't? I showed him another video, this one of him in a hotel room with a woman who definitely wasn't Bianca. Then your wife gets an interesting email about your extracurricular activities, along with your business partners, your clients, and anyone else who might be interested in your character. His face went white. You're blackmailing me. I'm offering you a choice. You can walk away quietly, or I can make your life as complicated as you've made mine. But either way, your relationship with my wife ends today. Damian stared at the phone screen for a long moment, then looked up at me with something that might have been respect. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Bianca said you were weak, passive, the kind of man who'd just accept whatever happened and move on. Bianca says a lot of things. Most of them are lies. He nodded slowly. What happens to her? That's not your problem anymore. And the evidence you have on me? Stays private as long as you stay away. This is a one-time offer, Damian. I suggest you take it. He was quiet for another moment, then nodded. Okay, you win. I'm not trying to win. I'm trying to end this. I left him sitting in his temporary office, staring at his phone like it might explode. One down, one to go. When I got home, Bianca was waiting for me in the living room. She looked like she'd been crying for hours, her makeup smeared and her professional facade completely gone. Damian won't return my calls, she said, without preamble. Maybe he's busy. Aaron, please. I know you talked to him. I know you've been orchestrating all of this. Just tell me what you want. What will it take for you to stop? I sat down across from her, studying the woman I'd been married to for 12 years. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of her choices. I want you to tell me the truth, I said. All of it. No more lies, no more excuses, no more manipulation. Just the truth. She took a shaky breath. What do you want to know? How long have you been cheating on me? 6 months, maybe 7. How many men? 3. Damian was just the most recent. Why? She was quiet for a long time, staring at her hands. Because I could. Because you never paid attention to me anymore. Never made me feel desired or important. Because I was tired of being invisible in my own marriage. So you decided to become visible to other men. I decided to feel alive again. To feel wanted, appreciated, exciting. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. When was the last time you looked at me the way Damian does? When was the last time you made me feel beautiful? When was the last time you gave me a reason to? The words hung in the air between us, cruel and final. "I know I hurt you," she said quietly. "I know I destroyed our marriage, but Aaron, what you're doing now, destroying my career, my friendships, my entire life, it's not justice. It's revenge." "You're right," I said. "It is revenge, and it's working exactly as designed." "So what now?" "You've won. I've lost my job, my reputation, my future. Damian won't talk to me, Nina won't talk to me, and my own husband looks at me like I'm some kind of criminal. What more do you want?" I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at our neighborhood. Nice houses, well-maintained lawns, the American dream in suburban form. It all looked the same as it had a week ago, but everything had changed. "I want you to understand something," I said without turning around. "For 12 years, I built my life around you. I supported your career, enabled your lifestyle, and ignored the warning signs because I wanted to believe in us. I was loyal, faithful, and committed to our marriage, even when you weren't. I know, I'm not finished." I turned back to face her. "You didn't just cheat on me, Bianca. You stole from me. You lied to me. You manipulated me. You made me complicit in your fraud and your infidelity. And when I finally discovered the truth, your first instinct wasn't to apologize or make amends. It was to gaslight me and make me the villain. Aaron, so yes, this is revenge. And yes, I'm destroying your life the same way you destroyed mine. The difference is that everything I'm doing is legal, justified, and completely deserved." She started crying again, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, no desire to comfort her. The woman I'd loved was gone, if she'd ever existed at all. "I'll file for divorce tomorrow," I said. "You can keep the house until it sells, but I want half of everything. The cars, the savings, the investments, all of it. And Bianca?" "What?" "If you ever try to contact me again after this is over, I'll release every piece of evidence I have to every person you've ever known. Your family, your friends, your future employers, everyone will know exactly who you really are." I walked toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and one more thing. That anonymous source who's been sending me videos and audio recordings, it wasn't Nina, and it wasn't some random whistleblower." "Then who was it?" I smiled for the first time in days. "It was Samira, your own colleague, the one you've been treating like an intern for 2 years. She's been documenting everything because she knew eventually you'd self-destruct, and she wanted to make sure she wasn't collateral damage." Bianca's face went through a series of expressions: shock, betrayal, and finally, a kind of broken understanding. "Everyone knew," she whispered. "Everyone knew. They just didn't care enough about you to warn you." I left her sitting in our living room, surrounded by the wreckage of her own choices. Tomorrow I'd start rebuilding my life. Tonight, I was finally free. 6 months later, I was living in a downtown apartment and working remotely for a cybersecurity firm based in Seattle. Bianca had moved back in with her sister after losing the house in the divorce. Damian had relocated to another city after his wife divorced him and his business partnerships dissolved. Nina had been fired and was working at a small marketing firm in another state. I didn't feel guilty about any of it. They'd made their choices, and I'd simply ensured they faced the consequences. The firewall had worked perfectly.